with the help of thanking Puente Rita Mancera, who's here to provide translation. And we are pleased to host this forum and hope it's the beginning of many civic participation events for our greater Pescadero community. So I will turn it over to our moderator, and thank you all again for coming and for listening in at home.
Here. Thank you. This forum is a little unusual because we have ballot measure 2 in this election. So I thought we would cover briefly what ballot measure 2 is going to do, because it's running concurrently to the candidates in your position. So currently, Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council, created in 1992, is supposed to comprise 13 members elected from 4 South Coast districts, plus 1 at-large member. Given the history of vacancies among PMAC council members, the increasing cost of elections, the fact that relatively few PMAC members actually run for election, many are appointed due to the lack of candidates, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors determined it was in the best interest of this county to reduce PMAC's membership from 13 members to 5, and all 5 members to be generally elected. These changes are subject to approval of the voter of the PMAC area in the election on November 5th. Therefore, Measure 2 will be on the upcoming November 5th general election ballot. Measure 2 states, shall the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council membership be reduced from 13 council members to 5 council members, all 5 of whom to be elected at large to serve 4-year terms, except that for those council members elected at the November 5th, 2024 election, the 3 candidates receiving the highest number of votes to serve initial 4-year terms commencing January 1, 2025, and the 2 candidates receiving the next higher number of votes to serve initial 2-year terms commencing January 1, 2025. Because that proposed measure is on the ballot at the same time as the election for PMAC council members, qualified voters can vote for both the measure and the current candidates for council member seats on PMAC. So, should Measure 2 be approved by a majority, that is 50% plus of the voters plus 1, 5 council members will be elected at large, meaning that all council members will be elected to serve on PMAC, regardless of their residency within any specific geographic district of the PMAC area. Additionally, if Measure 2 passes, the 3 candidates with the highest vote numbers will serve 4-year terms starting at the new year, and the next 2 candidates with the highest number of votes will serve 2-year terms. So a yes vote on this measure would reduce the council members from 13 to 5 and elected at large. A no vote on this measure would leave the number of council members eligible to serve on PMAC unchanged at 13 members, with their seats allocated based on residency. Okay, a lot. With that, we'll start the forum. First, I have some announcements. Please make sure your cell phones are on silent so that the candidates are not interrupted when they speak. To keep a neutral and nonpartisan atmosphere, the candidates agreed to our policy that no literature, clothing, or other material associated with their campaign is permitted in the room. This forum is also being broadcast live on Zoom and local radio station KPDO. A recording of this event will also be available on kpdo.net and CoastsideBuzz websites and our website. The league, the sponsor, and the candidates have agreed to run or link to the recording from beginning to end with no editing, in compliance with FCC rules. Unauthorized videos such as cell phone videos are also not allowed because the FCC requires that a forum recording be presented in its entirety. My name is Margie Gator. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. Thanks to Irma and Coastside Sustainable for sponsoring this forum tonight. We appreciate their interest and efforts in presenting events that increase voters' knowledge about candidates and issues. The League of Women Voters is a national nonpartisan volunteer organization. We welcome people of all ages. Our education mission is to encourage your active and informed participation in government at every level. The League does not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. Our sole interest is helping voters gain fair and unbiased information to make informed decisions on or before Election Day. The purpose of the candidate forum is to provide an opportunity for the candidates to be heard at one time and to be questioned by you, the voters. Bringing candidates and voters together face to face enables voters to be better informed about their election decisions. So thanks for coming out to learn more about the candidates and asking them questions. Tonight, you will hear from the candidates for the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council. As we know, there are 8 candidates for 5 seats, assuming ballot measure 2 passes. The term of office is 4 years for the top 3 vote recipients and 2 years for the next 2 top vote recipients. Again, this event provides a nonpartisan setting for the voters to hear all candidates. It's not for supporters or opponents of a particular candidate in the audience to demonstrate their own views or preferences. So keep any comments of disdain or delight to yourself, please, for now. At the end, we will thank the candidates for running and we can give them a hearty round of applause then. The candidates in alphabetical order are Ryan Augustine, Nick Arridge, Patrick Horn, Itzel Negrete, Cullen Rose, Rob Skinner, Sandra Talbot, and Mark Wallace. The rules for the forum are as follows. We will start with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. We'll then have the question period. During the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. All candidates will have an equal time to speak to the question. And then we'll have closing statements. Again, those will be 2 minutes apiece. Our timekeeper is Tina Doty. The timekeeper will hold warning signs when the candidate has 1 minute and then 30 seconds left on the allotted time. At the end of the time, the timekeeper will hold up a stop sign until the candidate stops speaking, and you can finish your sentence. Just don't go on for a paragraph, please. Our usher is Kathy Wheeler, and all the questions come to the moderator in writing. Kathy has cards for you to write down questions, and then just raise your hand if you need a card or if you have a question to be ready to be picked up. Please try to write legibly and try to keep your questions brief and to the point. Questions of a personal nature and personal invective will be out of order. All questions come to the moderator. I sort the questions by subject and ensure we cover a variety of topics. We seldom have time to ask all questions submitted, and I may need to rephrase or combine some questions at times. All right, we're about ready for opening statements. Everybody take a deep breath. Here we go. The candidates have drawn lots to determine the order in which they will speak. Hang on, gotta find my grid. Each candidate has 2 minutes for the opening statement, and our first candidate is Mark Wallace.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, and hello. My name is Mark Wallace. I moved to Pescadero with my family about 4 years ago, and this place has become very important to us since then. We live just a few doors down here on North Street, and we have 2 11-year-old girls, one of whom's here. Thank you, Clemmy. The other's sick at home, who you've probably seen around town. They went to school here at Pescadero Elementary, and my wife and I have both volunteered here at the school. I grew up in a place that's kind of similar to Pescadero in upstate New York, so it's been really nice for me to be here. We feel really embraced and welcomed by the community here, and it really is a community, which I think is kind of a rare thing. Pescadero is a place where it feels like everyone's looking out for each other, and where the people who live here and the people who visit here understand that there's something special going on in the town. But that also means I know how hard you have to work to preserve the great things about this place. So I joined PMAC about 3 years ago, and for about the last 2 years, I've been the chairperson, helping to organize and facilitate PMAC meetings and working with the county on a variety of issues. Especially for an unincorporated community, I think it's twice as important to have a strong advocate at the county level. And that's our job on PMAC, to listen to what the townspeople tell us they need, and to work with the county to secure the money and the services that will make a difference to our town. So that includes things like housing, where we still have work to do, especially for farm workers and young families. It includes doing more to support our farmers and our local business people. We also need to secure safe access to drinking water, not just now, but for generations in the future, and to make sure that we're good stewards of the environment here. So again, my name's Mark Wallace, and I would really appreciate your vote so that I can continue to be a strong
Thank you.
voice for Pescadero. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Cullen Rose.
First of all, I wanted to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. And good afternoon, Pescadero. My name is Cullen Rose, and I'm running for a seat on this council because I believe in the power of community advocacy and the importance of ensuring that our unique needs are addressed. As a Pescadero High School teacher and coach, I spent the past 3 years working closely with the youth and families of this town, and I see firsthand the challenges that we face every day. Pescadero is a beautiful and vibrant community, but we also have important issues to address, from improving infrastructure and housing to protecting our environment and local economy. I'm running to ensure that Pescadero's interests are represented in local government decisions with a focus on transparency, accountability, and long-term sustainability. I'm deeply committed to preserving the rural charm and natural beauty of Pescadero, while ensuring that we have access to the resources and infrastructure that allow all residents to thrive. Whether it's improving our local roads, advocating for affordable housing, or supporting our small businesses, I will work tirelessly to bring our community's voice to the table. One of the most pressing issues I've encountered in my role as a science teacher is the quality of our drinking water. For years, Pescadero Middle High School has relied on bottled water due to contaminated well water. But after extensive efforts, a project is now underway to connect the school to a safe, reliable water system. This issue is personal to me because my students' health and well-being depend on it. And I'm committed to making sure that this and other critical infrastructure projects are completed successfully. Beyond water, my platform centers on improving local infrastructure, advocating for affordable housing, and ensuring sustainable, thoughtful growth that protects our environment and rural character. I'm committed to working with the community and listening to your concerns to create a stronger, healthier future for Pescadero. Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to your support.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Patrick Horn.
Thank you. I'm Patrick Horn, a doctor of divinity, which means that I was trained and ordained with a spiritual ideal to serve in community, civic engagement like Plato's guardian of the republic or a chaplain of democracy. For those of you who don't know my story, I was born to poor orphans in Chicago, lived with foster parents in Wisconsin, and moved to Los Angeles, where I was a top real estate broker and launched a music career with 2 #1 international radio hits. For the last 15 years, I've been involved in the global movement to unite the world's religions for peace, justice, and environmental stewardship. I've moderated dialogues across difference and mobilized diverse groups to plant trees together, billions of trees. And this work has been endorsed by former U.S. Secretaries of State and Defense and the President. Now I am focused locally on Pescadero, Loma Mar, and the South Coast. I've lived here for 12 years since I was injured in a car crash along Route 66. My home in Pescadero is an answered prayer, and I agree with everybody who says that this place is paradise. But I've also lived here through the floods, the extreme drought, and the fire. I see the gap in wealth between our billionaire residents and the farm workers who live in squalor without access to clean drinking water and who can't afford to buy the food they grow. This is shameful for a county that is by some measures the richest in the nation. It is my honor to talk with you today about how I will donate my experience and skill in sacred service and duty as a town councilor advocating for this community, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Itzel Negrete.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here today. My name is Itzel Negrete Ramirez. I'm a local, so I was born and raised here. I'm a teacher at the high school, and I help run the after-school program at the elementary. As Mexican-American, I think I help contribute to a more accurate representation of our community, which I think, as has been mentioned before, is a very unique and dedicated community. For example, the farm workers that are an integral part to our community, they're not just farm workers to me, that's friends, family friends that we've had for generations sometimes. that also means that the kids of those farm workers are kids that I grew up with, or kids that I'm helping with the after school program, or kids that I'm helping right now as a teacher at the high school. I would appreciate your support. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Nick Erich.
All right, thanks. Thanks, League of Women Voters and volunteers like Irma and Catherine and Brendan and Rita. Thanks for putting this forum together. Really appreciate it. It's really necessary. I was appointed to PMAC as a member in 2013 till 2023. So I served for 10 years, but as an appointed official, not as a voted official. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity to be actually a member of this board who was actually chosen by the community. I've served on many councils and serving on many groups, park advisory councils, county councils, and served on several nonprofits and their boards. I volunteer my time and the efforts for the community on projects that I'm very, very passionate about. I'm a big advocate for local volunteerism. Every meaningful project in this community has been driven or directly or indirectly initiated, managed, and even delivered by local volunteers. I'm running for a position on PMAC because I see an opportunity to bring back something that's missing. That's the respect and the trust of the community and our very important partners that help us get things done. Communication and outreach is so important. And we struggle with that. And I think there's a real opportunity here to serve our community by doubling down on communication and outreach. We need to start working more with our community to understand what they really want, what they really need, and how we can really help them. Some say that PMAC doesn't have any power, but I disagree that if we collaborate and build our community together with one voice, we really can do a lot of really good things. The county, our partners, the important people that help get things done in this community will listen if we come to them with one cohesive voice. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next opening statement is Rob Skinner.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out. And
Thanks,
thank
okay.
you, Margie, for your efforts and your staff as well. I wish we could cover some of the propositions coming up on the ballot, but I don't think we'll have an opportunity to. I've been with PMAC for quite some time. I'm the only duly elected member here. I've interviewed and helped appoint everybody on the board here to date, and happily so, because they're all good people. I've got some unfinished business to take care of on PMAC. We do have a good deal of influence with the county, in spite of what some people may think. It doesn't work like a normal body because Pescadero is not normal. In fact, my motto is keep Pescadero, Pescadero. And that's what I'm going to try to do, because that's why people visit the community. We've got the housing issues to deal with. We've got the farm labor issues. I think the housing issue can be addressed if we could just get the county to accept above ground sewage treatment systems, then we could get ADUs in town and we could expand upon the housing we have. That's been the primary hangup. Also with the CSA 11 water district, I'm the representative for the ratepayers in town. They're this far away from putting in a 50% increase in water for our town. And we've been fighting that dually hard for the last about 18 months now. And we have a citizens committee that's helping with that as well. So I've got that. There's a whole bunch of other things too, but we've lived here full time for about 30 years. We had the antique store in town. My mother-in-law had the video store in town. If you can remember video, some of you can, like Rob Talbot out there and, and others. Anyway, I've got some unfinished business to take care of. I'd like to stay on the council for a couple more years or maybe 4, depending on how it works out. But I appreciate you showing up and thank you.
Thank you. Our next opening statement is Cassandra Talbot.
I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event as well. My name is Dr. Cassandra Talbot, and I'm honored to be running for a seat on the Pesca Municipal Advisory Council. I've been a resident here for 35 years. It's also my age. And I have deep roots in this community and a lifelong commitment to seeing it thrive. For the past 10 years, I've served as an educator in the community. Majority of that time was at the Pescadero Middle High School as the history and Spanish teacher. I am now the site lead here at the Pescadero Elementary School. This is where I've had the opportunity to work closely with our students and families, fostering connections across the generations. Being also able to connect in English and Spanish, I know how important it is to bridge the gap between languages and cultures, especially in a community as diverse and close-knit as ours. I've seen and learned about our community's unique challenges, and I'm passionate about ensuring that every voice in our community is heard. Our community does need housing solutions, access to clean and safe water, enhancing our community's emergency preparedness. I'm particularly focused on exploring bilingual disaster preparedness programs so that in times of crisis, no one is left behind due to language barriers. If I'm elected, I will continue to push for sustainable solutions that support the well-being of our residents, including advocating for those housing options, making our emergency safety measures more inclusive, and committed to ensuring that PMAC remains a platform where county officials and residents can come together to shape our community's growth in a way that reflects our shared values and aspirations. And thank you.
Thank you. And our final opening statement is Ryan Augustine.
Hi, I'm Ryan Augustine. I would like to express my appreciation to all that is helping put this on today, as well as those who here and that may not be present that are listening in. I wanted to tell everybody that I originally came from out of state. I came from Western Kansas in a small farming community, bigger than this one, but it was 2,000 people. My high school was about 140 students total, so somewhat similar. I spent time in the summers and harvesting with my grandfather and my dad, as well as, you know, for croplands, also for cattle. Spent a lot of time in that. But before, actually, you know, as I grew up, I got my degree in philosophy. I started my own business. I participated in our Chamber of Commerce there, was the president of our Chamber of Commerce, and was sent to our county economic development committee to work, you know, at the county level. Coming out here, I came out with my wife and daughter about 10 years ago. We moved out to the Pescadero area about 3. With that, we've come out here. We've fallen in love with Pescadero, with Loma Mar, with the whole South Coast community. My wife and I, we would really love to be staying in this area basically until we retire. So for that reason, I want, you know, this board, this committee board to succeed and be successful for that long-term growth. And I personally feel that I can't ask other people to run for this position and do this stuff if I'm not willing to do the hard work and stuff myself as well. And it's for that reason that I put my name in to run for today.
Thank you.
The election.
Okay, now it's time for the candidates to answer your question. If you haven't written a question, or if you think of one as the conversation unfolds, just wave down Kathy Wheeler over here and she will bring you a index card or pick up your question. Each candidate, again, will have 1 minute to answer. I will vary the order in which the candidates are called on to speak. So here we go. The first question, it's kind of a two-parter. Are you for or against measure 2 and why? And what are you excited to bring to PMAC that you think is lacking? So are you for or against measure 2 and why? And what are you excited to bring to PMAC that you think is lacking? And first to answer this is Itzel Negrete.
Okay, I actually don't know what measure 2 is.
Hmm?
Oh, okay, cool. Yes, I am for measure 2.
Yes, and you can talk to them,
oh,
not to
sorry.
me.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Are you for or against a ballot measure 2, which reduces the number of seats on the council and makes them irrespective of residents? And what are you excited to bring to PMAC that you think is lacking?
Okay. Yes, I'm for measure 2, and I contribute to a more accurate representation of our town. If it wasn't for the effort of my parents, I would probably be, I don't know, working in the field myself. And that can be said about a lot of the students that we have in the elementary school, in the middle school, in the high school, and other community members close to my age. So I feel like I am a solid choice as a local born and raised here. Yeah.
Thank you. Next on this question is Nick Arridge.
Yeah, I am definitely for measure two. I think having 13, we could have 25 people on PMAC. If they're all appointed, it really doesn't matter because people don't really take it seriously and they're not voted in by the people. So having 5 people actually voted in and chosen by the community lends a lot more credibility. And that's what PMAC really needs more of, is credibility. And what it's lacking, besides the credibility currently, even though we do have a really high functioning board right now, I think they're doing a lot of great work. But I think what we really need to double down on is the outreach and collaboration with the entire community. We're really missing an opportunity. PMAC, I know in the past, before I was on PMAC, it really worked really well from what I could tell. And I think we've gotten away from being that place where people go to learn what's going on in the community and actually working with the county and the important agencies within our purview to get things done. So I think we need to do more outreach, more collaboration with not just the people that show up to the meetings, but to everybody in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I've been asked to ask you all to make sure you speak up for the room. The mics are actually not for amplification, they're for the recording.
For the rest of the world.
Yeah, for the rest of the world.
Thanks, Brandon.
So please speak up so the room everybody in the room can hear you. And also, because I'm asking the questions, I'm not a voter, so you don't need to talk to me. Okay, next on this question is Colin Rose.
First of all, I am absolutely for measure 2. I strongly believe that the community needs to have a say in who represents them. And I think having less members will allow us to actually get more things done instead of just talk and decide and agree. With less members, we can actually agree upon certain things and then enact them. And for what I think I bring to this council, I am a science teacher and I am very data driven. And I believe in following the data and using objective measures to help our community.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
I would, I definitely support measure 2. You should vote yes on measure 2. I think it ensures that you have a council that represents you, the voters, and you know that they represent you because you voted for them. And I think it lends important credibility to PMAC. And I'm just generally in favor of measure 2. One of the things that I'd like to bring to the council is a little bit, I have a lot of experience of managing volunteer organizations and managing people's enthusiasm and channeling that into projects that lead to real change. And that's one of the things that I want to do over the next 4 years here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
I'm also in favor of measure 2. I will start that I found it a little depressing or kind of sad that we were getting rid of the districts, because I do see a benefit in having those kind of siloed districts, those different areas, making sure that we spread candidates throughout the entire PMAC area. However, with that stated, like we weren't seeing those areas get filled, and I feel that we were also seeing areas that some people may not be running because, well, they didn't want to run against other people that are just in their district or their area, as opposed to the general area. So I do feel like having overall the full PMAC area to vote for the people, that the people will manage that spread throughout. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Cassandra Talbot.
Yes, I'm in support of measure 2. I believe with 5 and actually having a contested race, that it gets taken more seriously, and then people actually would have to stand on a platform in order to get voted onto it, which would be great. And I'm excited to bring and contribute to collaborative spaces and coalition building. I think with a great team that is very cohesive and trusts each other, that we can make decisions faster, and that we can also tack on and contribute our forces and energy to already existing initiatives or create our own.
Thank you. And next is Patrick Horn.
Yeah, I support Measure 2 because it will make the advisory council more effective, efficient, and elected by the people. Nick Arridge recruited me. He spent 5 years persuading me to join. And the reason I joined was because I wanted to improve communications among the community, communications with the county. The role of PMAC is to be an advocate, to promote our common good of the region with the county, with the state as an important and an integral part. So during my 18 months, I have gone to community forums and listened. I have reached out across the county in a number of forums and built those relationships. And that's the kind of advocacy work that I'll continue to do. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you. And next is Rob Skinner.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of that measure. And the reason I'm not is because PMAC has always had the authority and the opportunity to change the size of the board anytime they wanted to. I don't think we need directions from up above to get that accomplished. If we all decided we wanted to reduce the size of the board, we could do it. And the reason we haven't had elections since I was elected is because we haven't had any contestants. We haven't had any members. We haven't had anybody join. Almost everybody in town has served on PMAC before. So it's really difficult finding people to come on board. So we have that opportunity to do it ourselves. And I like local governing as opposed to Big Brother from above. And we are very effective. Not all of you have been here that long, but we are very, very effective. And we can't always do it in the public's eye. Sometimes it has to be one-on-one with county members, and that's the way we can get it done. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is, how are you going to advise the county about land use and housing development and help make sure that seniors can afford to stay here after they retire and young people can stay here after they graduate high school? So essentially it's land use and housing development. How would you advise the county about land use and housing development to help make housing more affordable? And first is Mark Wallace.
So as the chair of PMAC, I'm already engaged on this topic. The county has begun a study of opportunities to expand housing in the area, and rather than let Redwood City take a look at what's happening here and make some decisions, the thing that I'm trying to do as chair of PMAC is work directly with building and planning to bring the community's input into that process from the get-go, and to let the community's voice be heard all along the way, rather than have people parachute in and give us a proposal and give us, a week or a month to vote on it. And, the engagement in the past has been pretty shallow, and I would really like to deepen that engagement so that the community's voice is heard at the county level much louder and with more influence than has been the case in the past.
Thank you. Next on land use and housing is Ryan Augustine.
One of the big things for me is, and this ties into it, is the construction of the new fire station. I find it interesting. It was brought to my attention about with its current location, how much of their service area is the ocean, or it kind of goes out into the ocean. And by assisting in moving that inland, that could help with fire insurance, better coverage, so those sorts of things. I think that on top of working with the county with their existing programs and trying to get the use of low income housing and those sorts of programs can also assist. So I think it's kind of a multi-pronged approach looking at the long term, like your housing, like insurance and stuff, how we can help and improve that, as well as the actual introduction of lower income housing or that long term housing.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
Since I have been on PMAC, we wrote a letter of priorities to the supervisor that had housing as the #1 item. And I specifically put in language about a community planning process. And I called up the building and planning department and talked for an hour with them about this. And we got 4 items in the general plan, special needs for housing. The county is launching the sites analysis part for affordable housing. They're spending $100,000 on a consultant. Already they haven't come to PMAC. First, they went to the Ag Committee, and I've heard from the county staff that they already have an attitude of it's not impossible, it's not prohibited to do development, it's just too hard. And that's not the kind of report that taxpayers should be spending $100,000 on. So definitely needing to build the relationship with the staff so we get something better.
Thank you. And next is Rob Skinner.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems we have is zoning, and our zoning is mostly PAD. There's no room at this point in time for us to do much more in the way of growth. We can't do any growth until we address the sewage problem and the leach fields that are predominant. It's the only thing we can use because we don't have a sewer district. So those issues are prime, and the major landowners around here are all nonprofit corporations, 501c3s who don't pay much in the way of property taxes. In fact, very little in property taxes, which directly impacts the community, directly impacts the school district, and directly impacts all of us. So until we can get above ground sewage treatment systems established through the county and through the health department, we're screwed. And if we can't, we're not going to get any zoning changes because it's all set aside as prime ag land. And that's really important because that's our primary business out here. So there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Itzel Negrete.
Sweet. Okay. I believe this is something that PMAC would do in collaboration with Puente de la Costa Sur. If I'm not wrong, they've already purchased the old high school and are working towards some sort of affordable housing program. I think they would be the best organization to help reach out to the members of the community that really need affordable housing, that are struggling to pay rent, that are struggling just to survive.
Thank you. Next is Nick Erridge.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a really big and powerful topic, and 1 minute isn't going to cover it, but I'm going to take my best shot at it. We cannot rely on the county to solve this problem. This is the #1 problem in Pescadero. It comes up every year. The 3 town visioning processes that we've had in the last 50 years, the #1 issue was housing. We can't rely on just the county. We have to collaborate with all our partners to make this happen. We're not going to change the zoning codes more than likely. This is a long game plan. You've got to start working with all the available partners in our community to get this done, and we can do it. We can do it. We've started breaking down those barriers. I think PMAC has done that. Puente has done that. The county is helping do that. I think we need to be reaching out farther than the county for this. It needs to be federal and state level to get these things done. But it is a #1 issue that I think we can solve if we actually truly collaborate and find out how many people need houses in this community. We don't even know what that number is. We should find that out first. We should ask what do people need before we start asking for people to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Cassandra Talbot.
I see the housing crisis as something that can be either divided into immediate and long term. For long term, I definitely think building coalition and advocating very loudly, very consistently is really important in order to see change that may be further down the line. For more immediate solutions, it could be making permitting for in-law units or ADU units just easier to do. So I think when PMAC actually solidifies its group, I think that would be great to map out what is some immediate advocacy that we can do that would be a quicker turnaround to kind of alleviate that tension. And then what is our long-term consistent, strong voice that we keep up the momentum to do to create that long-term change. But yes, it is very hard with the FEMA aligned and all the zoning laws. That is something we have to do, put a lot of effort behind consistently.
Thank you. And next is Colin Rose.
Affordable housing is a critical issue for many of our residents, including myself, my friends, and many of the families of my students. I plan to work closely with county officials to develop solutions that both meet the needs of our local families and workers while preserving the rural character of Pescadero. And I also think we need immediate solutions as well as a long-term plan. We need a balanced approach that includes affordable housing developments and incentives for property owners to create rental opportunities. And so as a part of this council, I will advocate for policies that address these needs and push for equitable housing options for everybody.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions in this vein. Attendance at PMAC meetings, both in person and via Zoom, is very low. How would you encourage more community members to attend meetings? And further, how would you increase civic participation throughout the PMAC area, not just people from downtown Pescadero? So how would you encourage more community members to attend meetings and be more active in civic participation throughout the PMAC area? And first on this is Nick Erridge.
All right. So yeah, this is a real issue for me. We need to market. You need to sell PMAC. People used to come. I remember before COVID, we had more attendance. And so I think COVID had a lot to do with it, but we haven't fixed that yet. And I think reaching out to the community and letting them know when those meetings are, not just posting it, but actually talking about it, getting on the radio. I think we do just enough to meet the Brown Act requirement for notifying people that we're having a meeting, but we don't go out there and pitch it and say, this is who's talking. And also asking, what do you want to see from your PMAC? What do you want to see from your board? What kind of presentations do you want to see? Yeah, I think you'll draw more people in if we actually collaborate with folks, reach out to them, do some more outreach. I keep saying that, outreach and collaboration, but I'm telling you, that's the missing component. If we ask people what they'd like to see, I think you'll get a lot more attendance.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
Yeah, real quick, I don't think anyone addressed the senior housing issue in the prior round, but I think before we can address that, we have to talk about public transportation in our community, which is non-existent basically. And if you're dealing with seniors, you don't want them driving anyway. So, we should probably have public transportation. But as far as attendance, I don't know who wrote the question, but that's a very subjective question. Actually, the attendance isn't all that bad for Pescadero, and I put that in quotes. You can see from the turnout here, it's not a real active community. So it helps to have a good program for PMAC. And the greatest one in attendance is one I started every January, which is an overview and a report to the community by all the retailers in the community. And that's standing room only at those PMAC meetings. So I think those types of programs are very helpful and get good turnout. Other than that, we should have a party probably.
Thank you. Next is Cassandra Talbot.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Attendance at PMAC meetings, both in person and via Zoom, is very low. How would you encourage more community members to attend meetings? And further, how would you increase civic participation throughout the PMAC area, not just people from downtown Pescadero?
Yeah, what I'm hearing internally in that question is also how to diversify the people that do attend. So where our Latinx populace that it would be attending the meetings. I think a big step for us was getting interpretation, which is amazing. been great. But I think people will come when not only they take us seriously, but they actually feel that their voices are valued and they actually see results. So that actually takes time, small focal points, big gestures, actually seeking out opinions across language and cultures in order to make those decisions.
Okay, thank you. Next is Cullen Rose.
So as a member of this community, I value the importance of listening to everybody. And my approach will include more regular community meetings or forums or parties, as it was previously mentioned. And I think having more increased transparency in decision-making and active outreach to these unrepresented groups, actually going out to the different ranches and speaking to the people that live and work there and listening to them and their problems. I think having more block parties, more community events where people get to interact with each other again, as well as creating a base of volunteers that we can come together as a community and help each other. Pescadero is home to a diverse population, and I'll make sure that all voices, particularly those of disadvantaged communities, are included in the conversations that affect their lives.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
So if they won't come to the meetings, go to them. And that's what I've done in the last 18 months. I have gone to so many different meetings that different groups have. I've been to the barbecue that the farm workers made. I went to the convention. Dr. Cassie and I created a survey, and we got a statistically significant data about what they want, so we can represent their interests on the council without them coming. We know what they're asking for. And I've reached out beyond just Stage Road and North Street. We've had events all over the Pescadero area, and I've reached out through the county, different organizations, different groups, different forums, so I can promote our interests. There are people in this county that don't know that we have agriculture in this county. And this is a grand revelation to them. So continuing to promote our story across the community and the county.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
I do think that people are occasionally shy to show up at PMAC meetings, in part because they're not sure what impact their voices are going to have. And so I think that we can do a better job of demonstrating that to them, partly by bringing the message out of the meeting and to the people who we serve. And one of the ways I think that would be great for us to do that is as has been mentioned, with more events, but more focused events, not just necessarily an event that gathers the town. That can be of value as well, but to hold town halls and forums that are focused on particular topics so that we do get a chance to hear what the community needs so that we can then represent those needs at the county level.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
I feel that really one of the big factors or something that makes it difficult is communication. The year-end meeting from all the businesses, or the year at the start of the year for the businesses, that had amazing attendance, but that was also publicized like a lot more, like as if it was a specific topic. And it's not just that like, oh, we have this agenda. It comes down to more about communicating that, hey, we're discussing this important topic tonight. And because if people don't know what that important topic is or what the topic that's being discussed, it's hard to have a drive to want to come to actually participate and listen through it. And to know about that 1 or 2 days in advance through an email, it can be difficult. So I think really the challenge is communication, and that communication can also be done through the projects that we already have where people can talk to each other out in the community.
Thank you. And finally, Itzel Negrete.
Oh, snap. Okay. Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Attendance at PMAC meetings, both in person and via Zoom, is very low. How would you encourage more community members to attend meetings? And further, how would you increase civic participation throughout the PMAC area, not just downtown Pescadero?
Okay. So I agree with other people who have previously stated Doing more events to include everyone in our community would be great. I also think we should promote PMAC meetings both in English and Spanish, and also encourage participants to like read what went on in those meetings in both English and Spanish. I think it might be a good idea to make them fun events just to encourage some sort of participation to make them excited to be with us. I think people are generally struggling to survive. They don't want to go to a place that's necessarily boring, or they've already had enough work for the day, are feeling tired, all that sort of stuff. So making it a fun event would help contribute to participation.
Great. Thank you. Our next question is, what are the major South Coast issues regarding disaster preparedness and emergency planning? And what would you recommend to the Board of Supervisors about that? What are the major South Coast issues regarding disaster preparedness and emergency planning? And what would you recommend to the Board of Supervisors about that? And first is Patrick Horn.
Okay. The county has a policy writing period that we're going through in the next year or so for the safety element. So this is the opportunity to write the policy in the general plan that the county is obligated to perform. And we're focusing on evacuation planning. The county-wide, there's a concern about a big earthquake. There's been scenarios for tsunami, and we have just seen a huge disaster, and we've been through disasters. We need to strengthen the communication in the community and with our partners. The Department of Emergency Planning is working on an app so that we can do scenario planning. If there's a fire, how long would it take to escape in certain situations? What do we do in the event that we lose all of our roads in and out? So going to the forums to write this policy together over the next couple of months is really important.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
I think there's two main things that we can do in this area. One is just to get a lot better at communicating procedures to people so that everybody on the coast knows what to do in what eventuality. And part of that is strengthening ties in the community. Where do you go when, who's checking on whom? But the other key thing for us, I believe, is that we need personnel who are stationed on the coast side who are responsible for preparedness and response. And we don't have that now, and as soon as anything hits, we're cut off from the rest of the county. So we need local resources to bolster our ability to respond.
Thank you. And next is Itzel Negrete.
Cool. All right. I agree with everything Mark just said. I think we should also do outreach, check in on residents, let them know like, hey, these are the drills or these are the precautions you should be taking. Yeah.
Thank you. Next is Nick Erridge.
Yeah, this is a tough one. It's very timely. The fires that we had a couple of years ago, we're prone to flooding here in Pescadero. We're 23 feet above sea level. Earthquakes. I think if something big really happened to our county or our state, we would be out here in the dark by ourselves for several weeks at best. And so I know there's a lot of work being done at a grassroots level. There's groups within the community that do things, but we haven't tied all that together. I think we need more engagement from OES, and we need more leadership from somewhere in the community. And in collaboration with the county and our biggest partners here to pull all those grassroots efforts together into a cohesive plan. It may not be the plan that solves everything, but at least people will know where to go. I think right now people don't really know. They go, oh, go to the high school or checking my neighbor, but that's about as far as it goes. I think we need a plan that's communicated, that's actually developed by us in the community, because we're going to be in the dark in a big event, and so we really have to take care of ourselves.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
The disaster preparedness is directly related to those that are doing the preparing. And that would be you and me and everybody else in the community. Because like someone said, if anything goes down bad, we're the last people to get any service. We don't have a backup generator up on the hill. We're supposed to have that according to the Department of Public Work, to State Water Resources Board. The DPW ran this town out of water for an entire week, not too many years ago. And there's more to go into than 1 minute would give me the time to do so. But if you're not prepared for disaster, you're shortchanging yourself and your family and your community. So you've got to take responsibility first. I mean, the sheriffs are going to be busy elsewhere. You were not going to see any CHP on this side of the hill, and you're not going to see any power and possibly no phone communications. So you better have your go bag. You better be self-contained. You better have a generator and take care of yourself and family.
Thank you. And next is Ryan Augustine.
With all of the, there's the obvious things of, having, a strong fire station presence. There's having, the sandbag stations for flooding. There's having people being prepared for the earthquakes, all of that, communication, whether it's working with local ham radio groups so that we're not cut off. But I think really one of the biggest things that we can do is help people understand what to do in an emergency. One of the factors that has a high survival thing of major disasters is that that's not the first time they've thought of that disaster. So whether that's, having an emergency preparedness day where we bring in emergency response units and we talk about what to do in a flood, we basically sponsor those things to help bring that education to our community. So when a disaster happens, it's not the first time they've thought of it.
Thank you. Next is Cullen Rose.
So I plan to prioritize enhancing our community's preparedness and engagement and resilience to these increasingly frequent and severe events. I will advocate for continued investment in flood control measures such as creek restoration projects and improved drainage systems to reduce the risk of flooding in high-risk areas. I will work to ensure that our community is equipped with the necessary resources for prevention and response. This includes advocating for controlled burns, fuel reduction programs, and better communication infrastructure to keep residents informed during emergencies. I also think we have a rich resource of incredibly intelligent humans in this community, and we can use each other to help everyone stay safe and be prepared. I remember, last year, one tree fell down in the middle of Pescadero Creek Road and no service people could get out there to chop down that tree and people were stuck there. Well, next thing I know, I'm waiting in line and neighbors are coming out with circular saws and chainsaws and chopping that down, and we need more of that.
Thank you. And finally, Cassandra Talbot.
A lot of things already kind of do happen in town. Like if there's a flood and there's sand and sandbags, I don't know how they got there, but like someone did it. So I think because what would be great is it's really the who is doing these things and how do we expand it. So some things would be like ham radio training in Spanish as well, because we have a majority that are just English speakers. Water storage for individual home units, education around log jams about jumping into the creek. Elderly care phone tree, who's taking care of whose neighbor and like who's going to be the one to take a look to check in on them. Bilingual point members, and clearing out growth in our forest areas. That one's definitely going to be harder, but definitely how do we think about fire prevention by clearing out growth now rather than later.
Thank you. That's everybody. Okay, next question is about traffic, and it's a two-parter. What will you do about parking congestion along Pescadero Creek Road and Stage Road? That's the first part. And the second part is Pescadero is a destination for reckless recreational driving and more fatalities and accidents recently. What will you do to mitigate traffic issues and speeding? So traffic, two parts. Congestion in town at Pescadero and Stage Road, and secondly, reckless recreational driving and speeding. And first is Ryan Augustine.
Well, First off, I'm not a traffic engineer, so I'd have to be working with the traffic engineers for everything that's possible and what can be done on the different roads. But some of the initial things that come to mind is that I feel that better markings of parking spots. I don't like the idea of having a bunch of painted lines for parking and stuff, and what that can do, what that might do to the visual aesthetic of like Stage Road and such. But I feel that that can help manage some of that traffic a little bit better, whether that's prohibiting in certain spots where it's really narrow, or making people park diagonally instead of perpendicularly or parallel, taking up the different. So all of that can be managed, as well as fixing the intersection at Pescadero Creek Road and Stage Road, that coming out of the private parking there. I am also a fan of looking into the parking along Pescadero
you.
Creek Road.
Thank you. Next is Colin Rose.
So both of these issues have affected me personally, and I know they've affected many of our community members. I used to live on Stage Road, and we couldn't find parking. Sometimes we had to go all the way down the street before even getting into our apartment. And also last year, I was run off the road by somebody speeding down in their sports car in the middle of the road. So first of all, I do think we need more parking, and we need clear parking designation as well as signage. And also potentially improved roads, wider roads, so that people have more space, as well as maybe more visibility of police, as that has been proven to deter speeding and keep people safe on the roads. And, you know, again, using our community members to put even signs out saying like, hey, please slow down, and getting that word out to everybody.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
I've already done quite a bit of work on this, especially up in the Lomamar area for a bus stop that was created, markings for that, and also the chevrons coming down the S-turns into Lomamar. So that took me 2 years, but I got that done. As far as the speeding goes, the sheriff is very responsive to us when we make a request, and so is the CHP. They come out, do their thing, and then they leave, and they're stretched very thin. So you just have to be conscious of that. There was with regard to the sandbags issue, then the last flood, I had to call DPW each day and tell them to bring in more sand and more sandbags. And it was funny because I reached Ray the very first day of his tenant's term for county supervisor, when he was in San Diego, and I told him what was going on. He said, I'll take care of it, which he did immediately. So there's a lot more to be discussed here. You're welcome.
Next is Patrick Horn.
Parking, trash, and bathrooms seem to be the perennial problems. And parking is a tough one. We have heard in public comments some suggestions about things that could be done. So perhaps having a citizens committee would be a good way of brainstorming through this problem. We're also building a community space that has already a parking lot that can be reconfigured. So it might be possible to enhance flow, have more spaces as we do that design in the coming year. And then so far as all the reckless driving, I don't personally go out on the weekends because there's maniacs out there. We have asked the sheriff's deputies and the CHP for more presence. I have reached out to the captains and the deputies on duty to build that relationship. They are stretched thin, but they do respond.
Thank you. And next is Cassandra Talbot.
A lot of fellow colleagues have said pretty much everything, but I do agree in improving signage, and our bike lanes are way too small for it actually to be a bike lane down Pescadero Creek Road.
What bike lanes?
Right, exactly. So I would say if there's any advocacy there, but especially more signage, something a little bit more stark and obvious in terms of the Pomponio Beach and San Gregorio Beach turnouts, because that's where a majority of our accidents do occur. And just this summer, 2 of our staff employees got in a car accident on Highway 1. So those are, I think, in addition to everything that all the counselors just said, Also, Pomponio Beach and San Gregorio turnout needs signage as well.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
Yeah, these are important issues. They're a trade-off. We do need better facilities for parking, and part of the thing that we're going to have to trade for that is we're going to need markings, and we're going to need to make adjustments up and down Stage and Pescadero Creek Road. In terms of reckless driving, that's also a trade-off. There are a number of roadway changes that can be made to slow traffic. There are curb adjustments that can be made. There are speed bumps that can be put in. North Street especially needs some attention, as does Pescadero Creek Road. But we're going to have to make some hard decisions. And so we're going to need to hear from people, and we need also more data about how much parking is needed and where the accidents are happening. And it's going to be a process, but I think we'll get there.
Thank you. Next is Itzel Negrete.
All right. I think everyone brings up good points. Personally, I agree with the first speaker. Having people park diagonally, doing something like in Half Moon Bay where you park diagonally and the lanes become a little more narrow. So you have to drive slowly. Otherwise, it's extremely dangerous. That said, we live in a beautiful town located right next to the beach. During the weekends, we get a lot of cyclists, other tourists. I don't see how we could discourage that without making Pescadero less nice. Yeah.
Yes. Well said.
Thank you. And next is Nick Erridge.
Yeah, I think PMAC has done a really good job so far with advocating for adjusted speed limit signs coming into town and out of town. I think we need to keep that up. We also need to advocate for ourselves. There are always going to be bad actors. No matter how many signs or markings or bumps you put out there, you're going to have people flying by. We need to report those, and we can't wait for other people to do it. When you see bad actors, you need to call it in. You may not get an immediate response. That person's, the bad actor's going to fly by and it's going to be too late. But the more we report on it, the more we advocate for ourselves as a community to say, look, these things are happening. And it's not just us talking at PMAC. It's actually, they have records of people calling in and articulating these serious issues. I think we'll get more response from Sheriff and CHP. And as far as parking, we are reviewing the parking at the Pescadero Community Space Project. And there's plenty of opportunities to adjust the parking that we already have. The parking is only a problem. It's a spike, right? It's on the weekends or when there's an event. So there are opportunities there to look at other surrounding properties for parking.
Thank you. The next question's kind of on the flip side of this. How can we increase business and tourism in town? How can we increase business and tourism in town? And first is Cassandra Talbot.
Increasing business and tourism. Well, I think first and foremost, we need to support our existing local businesses and making sure that they continue to thrive. Based on increasing the existence of businesses, that would be a tough one based on how you could actually build and construct, but possibly exploring, can we build vertically? Probably not even vertically. We're zoned for vertical. Amazing. So yeah, for local business, I want us to still have safe spaces for tourists to come and visit us. So I do agree that if it's kind of a broad question, you have safe parking, you have access to all the businesses, locals are still contributing to local businesses, and we're building things just like Nick Erridge's contributions with the Pescadero Plaza. Hopefully that continues to attract, and then we continue to bring in more initiatives such as that. See how it goes.
Thank you. Next is Itzel Negrete.
Okay, great. I don't have an answer to this. I think there's trade-offs, like Dr. Cassie mentioned. We can either promote safe driving conditions, or we can increase the flow, therefore promoting local businesses. But I think as locals, the best we can do is support our local businesses.
Thank you. Next is Nick Erridge.
This is a fun one because half the people don't want any more people coming and the other half do. So how do you solve that? Well, there's no real good solve for it, but I know one thing People love the events that we have in town, like PAF. That's a great one. The barn sale, another beautiful event that people love to come to, and it worked out well. I think we had more of those kinds of events that are off town, off premise, maybe at the high school, just outside of town. You would bring in business in the community, but without adding a lot of extra traffic that's concentrated right in town. And then there's other crazy ideas like, what if we got some land and built a golf course or a mountain bike, right? Don't laugh, or a mountain bike park, or, that's, if it's outside of town, but then people come here and park and go to those places and come to the businesses that are in town. It's not that crazy of an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
I feel like the last question and this one don't necessarily have to be like contradicting each other, kind of working against each other. I feel like by making the downtown area more safe and a better flow of traffic and pedestrians, I think that will encourage people to come here still. I think that will still bring the out of town traffic. And additionally, I think, if we're working to mitigate flood risk, and we're working to mitigate fire danger, and we're working to address some of these issues and concerns that all of us have, that's also going to reflect positively for our businesses, because that's less risk and things that they're also having to deal with as well. So I think dealing with a lot of these issues and that we've talked about already will also help increase the business for the businesses.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
I do think that, maybe the best thing that PMAC can do to increase commerce and tourism here is essentially what PMAC's been doing, just to improve conditions in the town. But I do think that there are communications is something that we don't do a lot of, communications outside of town and on the web. A certain amount of marketing that could go toward this issue. That said, we're a very small town, and we do need to be careful to balance our growth. I also think events in the fashion that Nick was talking about would be helpful in this area. But I think everything kind of has to grow in step organically with itself. We can't just push on one end of things and expect that everything else is going to keep pace.
Thank you. Next is Colin Rose.
So first of all, our local businesses are vital to Pescadero's economy and our unique character. And so I'll work to improve infrastructure such as parking and signage to make it easier for residents and visitors to access our local businesses. Additionally, I will advocate for programs that provide financial and technical support to entrepreneurs and small businesses, helping them thrive and grow here. And as one of the previous speakers mentioned, I do think we need more events here in Pescadero. More places where our locals can actually contribute to our local economy instead of relying on outside sources. So again, my whole platform is based around utilizing our community to support our community.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
I would say that our tourism business right now is excellent, and it has been all along. It's mostly on the weekends, as you know, never on Tuesdays because nothing's open. But as far as businesses are concerned, I think businesses are more oriented to tourism pricing wise and what they offer than they are for locals. It's too bad Cindy's hasn't reopened, and it's too bad it burned down in the first place, because that was the one local place that was affordable in town and had a really good a product for the price. You can't really encourage more tourism until you can accommodate them. Like Mark said, it has to be organic and growth. And I certainly agree with that. With regard to parking, I'm sure all of you have seen the agenda for next Tuesday's meeting, but there's going to be a citizens committee for parking. So I expect to see all of you there, of course, because you have nothing else to do Tuesdays, 6 o'clock at the church. So I look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Patrick Horn.
So
I think that to support the businesses, we should continue doing the annual State of Pescadero Business Report. As part of that, last year, I went to the Chamber of Commerce for the Coast Side, and I gave a 10-minute presentation to people from all over the Coast Side who were surprised at how much they didn't know about all of the great things that we have going on here in Pescadero. There is an opportunity center for people who are interested in starting businesses that is in Half Moon Bay, and that's available. One of the problems with starting a business, though, is that there's a lack of housing for labor when you're trying to start a business. So we have to deal with that problem. Also, since there are several groups that are trying to develop a community app for the river, for evacuations, et cetera, why not have a community app that can help to direct the tourism to our resources like a scavenger hunt? So I'll advocate for something
Thank
like
you.
that.
Thank you. Next is oh, no, we have a new question. Next question is, what are the greatest needs regarding agriculture and farm workers and that you would like to raise to the Board of Supervisors to address? What are the greatest needs regarding agriculture and farm workers that you would raise to the Board of Supervisors to address? And first is Colin Rose.
So I think this ties back to our first question, being that one of the biggest issues is housing. And we need to provide equitable and affordable housing for our workers and people to be able to live and work here so they don't have to commute from all the way out of town. And I'm committed to listening and collecting more data as well to make more informed decisions to help these places thrive.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
I went to the Farm Workers Convention, took a survey, and of course, housing, number one, but access to clean drinking water. And now that the Farm Worker Housing Inspection Task Force has completed their work, we know that a third of our 350 farm workers don't have access to clean drinking water. So that's really important. We need a water task force, a WTF, to take care of that. Now, we also, what they said is that they make enough money that they no longer qualify for health care from the county, but they don't make enough money so that they can afford health care, and they need access to health care. And there is a county board that has focused on farm worker health care, and that board has invited me to apply and represent those interests, and that's something I will do if you vote for me to be your town councilor.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
I would have to agree. I with some of what the others were saying as well. I think the two biggest issues would be housing and drinking water. I mean, those are our basic, some of our basic needs. Obviously, that survey and the that the county did also included wastewater, which is also very important. But basically, wrapping all of that stuff into housing. Additionally, I think it is interesting that the cost of like groceries to this area could be, as compared to other spots, and with the availability of things and stuff. So I would be interested in digging into the food availability and food insecurity, as well as things to investigate.
Thank you. Next is Cassandra Talbot.
That was perfect timing. I was just about to say livable wage and housing in order to actually have and actually to create that food stability, access to clean drinking water. And I would even say to expand even further into just into pathways and access to education and services.
Thank you. Next is Nick Arridge.
Yeah, farmers and ranchers are such a huge part of the culture of Pescadero. And, in the 10 years I served on PMAC, one of the things I've heard over and over again was the things that they need: housing, transportation, health services. There's one organization in town right now providing all those things, and we could learn from that organization and expand that. We should be partnering with the organizations that are currently providing those services and build that organically. We can't wait for other agencies to come in and do that for us. We need to partner with the folks that are doing it now and learn from what they've done and double down on that.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
I would say that Puente's got the housing issues very well covered, thanks to Rita and her staff. They're doing an excellent job of representing the farm labor workers in the area. So I think that they're probably the best people to handle this. I mean, we can put in our 2 cents, but that's about all it's worth is 2 cents. It takes advocacy like Puente's doing. On the other issues of, well, also the Ag Advisory Council and the Farm Bureau are certainly addressing many of those issues along with Puente. The other thing I might say about clean water is someone should invest maybe through a grant or maybe through the county with our own tax dollars in water filtration systems for each house. You can buy a Berkey water filter system for about $300 and filter all of your own water on site, which you're going to need in case of a flood anyway. And you don't have to worry about bottled water, contamination, plastic bottles, etc.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
next is Itzel Negrete.
Cool. I agree with everything that was just said by the other candidates. And as I said before, I think this is something that PMAC should collaborate with Puente de la Costa Sur to reach the people that affordable housing affects the most.
Thank you. And next is Mark Wallace.
Farm worker housing and safe drinking water, as well as a number of basic services, are really at the top of the list here. I think that one of the things that PMAC can do directly is to get more farmers in the room and to get more farm workers in the room. We really need to expand the conversation that we're having with both farmers and ranchers and farm workers. And I think one of the things, and we have started to do that with interpretation now, and that's been great. But one of the things that I think that we're going to have to do is bring the conversation out of the meetings and to those places and to those people who can tell us what they need and how we can help them. So I'm hoping we get to do more of that this year.
Thank you. Our next question is, should agricultural land that's not in production be rezoned for development? Should agricultural land that's not in production be rezoned for development? And first is Rob Skinner.
Well, the first issue you've got to deal with in that is the Coastal Commission. And the Coastal Commission is not exactly a friendly place, and they are not friendly to residents within their domain. They really think that they are a law enforcement entity, but they didn't write the laws. So go figure. It's almost an impossible task. Okay, especially for a body like ours. We don't make laws. We really don't have any authority. All we can do is say, hey, you guys over there in Redwood City, come see us once in a while. And besides that, we have some needs here. And that's about all we can do. And we can put pressure on them as we have done over the years, subtly, and in some cases, not quite so subtly. But the biggest obstacle here is the Coastal Commission, period.
Thank you. And next is Cassandra Talbot.
Very impossible question,
Yeah.
Robert.
Yes.
I think when I think of development and agricultural land, I think our farm workers and our farmers are going through their own unique, multifaceted struggles. But in terms of building and development, I think drawing the line between that we may not be many, we're only about 1,000, but we do have needs and services and even more affordable items that require diverse businesses here in town. So I think that does validate building. Whether that gets approved is a whole nother question. But doesn't mean we can't. Just
Right.
means it will take a while.
Right.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
Yeah, this is certainly not a yes or no question. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, in terms of rezoning agricultural land, but we have to be really very careful in how we proceed, that we don't cause more problems than we solve here. I think that said, I think a lot of the environmental regulations that govern what we can and can't do with land here are ones that were written decades ago, and that in a perfect world, we could have a voice in updating. Now, that's a really, really difficult task, especially for a body like this to get done. But I think that there's an opportunity here. And I think that, if there's something that we can do in a very measured way, that there is the opportunity to kind of preserve the environment and the character of the town while expanding the resources that are available in terms of housing and in other senses for developing the land that we have.
Thank you. And next is Itzel Negrete.
Cool. As we've talked in this forum, one of the biggest issues is affordable housing. So my answer is no, unless this can address affordable housing for farmers and farm workers.
Okay, thank you. Next is Colin Rose.
So I think the most important part about this question is that we really need to focus on preserving the unique character of Pescadero. And for that reason, I don't know if development in those areas may be the best idea. But this brings back the previous question about our farm workers. And one issue that I forgot to talk about, I don't know if anybody addressed, is that we live in an agricultural town that's also a food desert. I've spoken to many of these farmers, and they've said that sometimes the only access they have to fresh produce is that's given to them by their work. Now, this might be a wild idea, but they do this in a small town in England where they actually grow all the food on their own land for the people in the community. Wouldn't that be awesome if we could feed our own community so we didn't have to go over the hill to get groceries? That could solve a lot of issues that farm workers face, that locals face, and our community could be there to support it.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
So we have a sites analysis that is being paid for by the county, $100,000. Is there an unused ag site to develop? Let's have a conversation about it. Let's have a conversation about what the real possibilities are here, because I've heard from the staff who are working on that report, getting started on it. They've been doing this for 30 years, and it's not impossible to develop Pescadero. It's not prohibited, but it's too hard. And it's not worth spending $100,000 for that kind of report. So let's have the conversation. I don't know what site we could possibly develop. When we talk about development in Pescadero, we're not talking about 300 units. We're not talking about 30 units. I would be surprised if we had 3. And fortunately, the county just set up 4 over at Fifth Crow. So that means that we're ahead of my expectation. Let's see what else we can have when we write this policy and work with this sites analysis over the next year.
Thank you. And next is Nick Erich.
Yeah, I'm all for reviewing zoning for development, but development means different things to different people. You hear development in a small town like ours, and you get scared. You think it's going to be a McMansion or a huge, apartment building that's 3 stories. It doesn't fit the community. But those are things we need. We need housing, but we also need other services. Like, imagine if we allowed development strictly for low-level housing, low level meaning low profile, or a health clinic, or a library, or a community building. So I'm for development if it's not free flow development like you see in a incorporated town. It needs to be very specific to an unincorporated community that's disadvantaged, that has some serious needs, and is lacking all services or many services. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ryan Augustine.
I strongly agree with that. There's a lot of thought that has to go into that. Just because the land is not currently developed, the agricultural land isn't being used, doesn't mean that it's not to be used soon. Or as some others have said, maybe we should be allowing a specific type of development, not others. Those low income or low housing, very light footprint. But I do want to stress that this is a big issue, and the people. It is something that is difficult to do. and agencies make it can make it almost near impossible. But the key word is near. And if it's worth doing, then we should do it. I mean, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and then everything would be developed. So if what's come together is worth doing, then yes, we pursue it.
Thank you. We have time for about 2 more questions. So the first one is basically your priorities. And I like how they asked this one. What's your signature issue? If you had a magic wand and you knew you had 100% chance of success to change a county policy, regulation, land use plan, or spending priority, what would you do and how would you do it? So what's your signature issue? If you knew you had 100% chance of success, magic wand to change a county policy, regulation, land use plan, or spending priority, what would you do and how would you do it? And first is Mark Wallace.
The issue that brought me to PMAC in the first place was housing. And so if there's one thing that I would, if I could wave a magic wand and solve one issue in the community, it would be housing. One of the difficulties in solving that issue is that there are a lot of issues that fall out from that, including, water treatment and drinking water and zoning laws and farm worker housing. But that would be, if there was one thing that I could wave a wand over, it would be housing, and working closely with the county to make sure that the changes that we need here on the coast side are implemented in the way that makes the most sense for our community.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
My key issue that in this waving a magic wand would be the sustainability for all income levels, for all professions. I mean, whether that it's providing that sustainability of living for lower income people that may be that to have access to that food insecurity. It would be providing that sustainability of being able to graduate from the high school and to have a job in the area that you could then lead to buy a house in the area, that availability would be there. It's not sustainable when you're forced to have to go elsewhere. I mean, that's different than choosing to go elsewhere, which is in all of its merits is its own merit. But to wrap it all up in one, it would be the sustainability of living and being here in the South Coast area.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
So we have 4 special needs items in the housing element that were achieved through a coalition of work. Puente's community policy and their farm worker organizations with the convention. The housing leadership with the county, PMAC's priority letter that asked for a community planning process. We need to see those 4 items through practically as the next task, especially this sites analysis. $100,000 is a lot of money, and we want to make sure that consultant isn't making the mistakes the consultant on the fire station project is making. And also beyond that, let's just go in the cadence of things that are coming up. There's a safety element. There is a consultant that's gathering feedback on disaster preparedness and emergency planning. So we need to have the serious conversations so we get the items into the safety element so that the policy is there, and then we can advocate for budget allocations at the county.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
I would approach the county and especially the health department and building and planning and make them approve above ground sewage treatment systems, independent systems that could be shared by neighbors or as a standalone. That's the only thing that's getting in the way of our growth for housing and ADUs. It's accepted in Santa Clara County. It's accepted in Santa Cruz County. Davenport, for example, their entire sewage system is based on that technology. So there's no excuse. It's in existence. It has been for many years. one of the biggest advocates of that is Catherine, sitting right over there. She's had presentations many times to Sustainable Group, as well as we have it at PMAC. So I'm all in for that one. And I think our entire community could get behind that. I hope anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Itzel Negrete.
I think you guys already know. If I could, then I would move to have the unused ag land become affordable housing for farm workers.
Okay, thank you. Next is Nick Arridge.
I was on PMAC for 10 years, and I've heard ever since I've lived here that housing is the biggest issue in this community, and I believe that. I really do. And the only reason I haven't worked on it is because there's a lot smarter people that are working on that. And I'm really glad that they're here to work on that. And so that's why I have not worked on housing. But what I would choose to do, since so many people are going to focus on housing, which I'm really excited about, I would focus on transportation. Transportation it touches everybody in this community. We have so many kids that are now going to school in Half Moon Bay, with parents driving back and forth, using gas, using up their time, taking kids back and forth. There are people who will go there for shopping. Puente has built their own transportation solution. This town used to have a transportation solution, and we let it go. It was a missed opportunity. We need to bring that back. We really need to bring it back, a transportation service that we can then expand. And it would do so much good for this community. Plus, it would also provide housing and jobs for people. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Cassandra Talbot.
I would like it to be affordable to live here, because at the current, if it had 100% success rate, currently there's only like one kind of person and one kind of socioeconomic status that actually gets to stay in Pescadero. I would want Pescadero to be a place where multi-generational Pescadero children would grow up and say, I can actually stay here. And it's maybe not with their parents, but that's the situation for a lot of us, right? So not saying I don't love my family, but I'm saying is then farmers actually children grow into farming families and continue that tradition, or bakers or chefs, or the things that make this town charming. But that just could be my personal lived experience, but it would be sad to see any of the local businesses or farms not being taken up by the next generation of children, because that just wasn't where they were living. They weren't able to stay. And so it turns into something different. And I know change is okay at the same time.
Thank you. And next is Cullen Rose.
So I'm hoping my answer can address all of the issues. And so if I had to focus on one thing, it would be Pescadero pride. I love this community. I love this town. And I think there's many other people that do as well. But I know working with the young generation and the families that go to school here, many of them don't want to stay here because of all the problems and the issues that we face, including water. The fact that our high school doesn't have clean water, and it's deplorable. That's embarrassing, which is why people are going to Half Moon Bay instead when they should be coming here. The fact that we don't have access to food, that's embarrassing. Same with affordable housing and public transportation. If we had more community pride here, pride leads to action. Because if people were proud of this space, they would make sure that all those problems were actively being worked on by every member in this community.
Thank you. All right, our last question. You each have unique skills that you bring to this job. What is yours? What is your unique skill and strengths that you bring to this job? In other words, what is your superpower? All right, what unique skills would you bring to the job, and what is your superpower? And first is Nick Arridge.
Go, Nick.
Yeah, I don't think I have any superpower, but I do hear a lot of people say that I'm tenacious. And so I use an example, the community space. I started that initially when I was on PMAC 10 years ago as a solve to bring public bathrooms to Pescadero, and people said it could never be done. And 10 years later, here we are. we're building a community space and it's going to have bathrooms. And that takes a lot of tenacity to stay with it, to keep asking, keep pushing. I was told no over and over again by property owners, by the county, by all kinds of officials that are now on board with this, with what we're doing as a community. So I think my tenacity is my superpower and my advocacy for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
Yeah, I go along with Nick. I don't have any superpowers. I do have historic memory, however, of the community over many, many years time. And I can sadly go through the names of the people who have participated in PMAC that are no longer here, that some of you probably have never even heard of. Some of you have, hopefully. The efforts that are made by PMAC are greater than are visible in the community. I think that the turnout here today is representative of our community. It's like pulling teeth, getting people to participate in activities, unless it's free or there's food involved or a beer or something. So it's tough. And I think you can see that from the participation tonight. When we opened this session, we outnumbered the number of guests here. Fortunately, we have more guests now than we have participants, but it's a tough one. It's a challenge.
Thank you. Cassandra Talbot, what's your unique skills and superpower you bring to this job?
Unique skills, very broad, but I'm going to say the thing I've spent the most time doing is obviously studying education and studying qualitative and qualitative data. I also work on another board outside of PMAC. So in that one, I fundraise, organize events, and engage stakeholders. So I think between the two, and obviously I've been on PMAC for 4 years, so that also says something.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next is Colin Rose.
So this is a difficult question, but if I had to say I had one superpower, it's that I get things done.
Science.
And science. Yes, absolutely.
And science.
Using scientifically backed data to get things done. I'm not just about talking about, oh, we could do this, we could do that. No, I'm about action. I want things to actually improve in this community. And I will work hard. If I have an idea or if somebody has an idea that I agree with, I have the grit and the perseverance and the work ethic to make sure that it happens, that it goes into action. And that's what I think we need to see more of here. And that's what I think the community wants to see more of, is more action, getting more things done. Some of which I'm trying to do at the school. With my friend, we created an environmental field studies program, and we've already done some incredible things like restoring the coastline by propagating native plants at our school and then planting them at the Pescadero beaches to help restore and preserve that coastline. And I plan to do much more.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
My superpower is that I show up and I listen and I try to find points of consensus so that people can come together. Don't underestimate showing up. I go to the meetings for PMAC early so that I can set up the tables and put out the tablecloth and set up the chairs and bring out the flag and set up the screen. And I stay after and I make sure that it all gets put away and I lock up. And I also go out into the community and I go to the events, I go to the forums, I reach out to the agencies, the county personnel, the Congresswoman's office, our state senator. I'm out there telling our story and advocating for what we need so that people do regard Pescadero as an integral and important part of the county and the state. So showing up is my superpower.
Thank you. Next is Mark Wallace.
Well, Nick took my first superpower. I was going to say persistence, but he got me with tenacity. And then Patrick took the next one, which was, I was going to say my ability to listen and bring people together. So I had to pick a third one, which was, I think, the ability to manage upward, because PMAC is an advisory committee. We don't control any resources. We don't make any decisions. We listen to the community and we bring your voice to the county and the agency level and the state level. And I have a lot of experience doing that kind of thing as a nonprofit executive, as an executive or founder in small companies, managing boards, managing my bosses to try to get the people who are in charge of the resources I need to direct those resources at the place where I know that we need to get things done. So I think managing upward is the superpower that I'm going to go with today.
Thank you. Next is Ryan Augustine.
I feel that my superpower is critical thinking. It might sound, so I don't know, but the thing that will sound odd is probably hearing from a politician that, I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything, but through critical thinking and pairing that with my love of talking with people, like I can, help, we can all I can gather that information and work with people and somebody who has an idea, or if the idea I have is wrong and somebody comes up and talks to me about it and is able to explain to me how it is, I am perfectly okay with that, because I want the correct answer. I want the right thing to come through, because I'm not stuck on myself coming up with the answer and it being my project. It's about our project. And so I feel that my superpower is the critical thinking, which would be supplemented by the talking with people.
Thank you. And finally, Itzel Negrete.
All right. Superpowers, none. Skills, maybe one. As a teacher at the high school, helping run the after-school program here at the elementary school, I help promote students. I help them learn how to advocate for themselves, be it like, hey, I need to ask my parents for a water bottle because I don't have one and it's 85 degrees outside, or learning to just ask for a cup, or asking for a different grade because they deserve a better grade, stuff like that. And I think that goes hand in hand with civic engagement, especially among our youth. We want to make sure that our youth has the opportunity to engage with our community, and that I think goes side by side with PMAC, whether that be like having PMAC come to the elementary school, talk to the elementary school students about the issues we're facing, such as not having good water, or providing community service hours for high school students, as long as they participate and engage with PMAC.
Thank you. All right, it's time for closing statements. Closing statements will be in reverse order from opening statements. With that, we will start with Ryan Augustine.
Right. Well, first, I want to thank everybody for sticking around, listening to us all, coming in person, and those that are listening online and watching online. I appreciate everybody coming to listen to all 8 of us. I think it's very important that we always treat our vote appropriately when we go out and we do vote. Sometimes people feel that, oh, does your vote matter? And most definitely it does. And even if the people that you vote for don't make it, your vote still matters. And you should still be actively engaged in talking with those people that are your elected officials. So with that, I wanted to wrap up again. As I had mentioned, I feel that I might not have all the best answers, but the thing that I really strive for, and that I love, and that I'm very proud of, is that I want to find the right answers. I want to put in the work to get those. I want to be involved in those in the town in ways that I can learn what's happening, that I can assist my neighbors, that I can be there in their times of need, or if they're having a problem, that I can help pass that information along. And I want to say that regardless of everything, but most definitely, if once the election comes through, if you see me around town, now or even after, always feel free to come up and speak with me, say hi. I'm always open to talk and to discuss whatever issue may be on your mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cassandra Talbot.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here today. And I'm leaving today with a lot of confidence in whichever quantity of people sitting at this table get the vote, that it's going to be amazing regardless, no matter what happens. And so I urge each of you to carry what you've learned today forward. So talk to neighbors, learn about the issues, and as well to come out and vote. So I want to thank you again for being here and participating in asking us amazing questions that turned out to be an amazing brainstorming session. And I look forward to seeing you all around town.
Thank you. Next is Rob Skinner.
I honestly, I don't think we're ever going to see any rezoning of PAD property in this area. It's just not going to happen. When you realize that rezoning has to be a LAFCO process, which I can't get into right now, but that's a countywide vote. And the people from over the hill like it over here because it's not what is over the hill from whence they left. They like it because it's wide open spaces, and it's going to have to stay that way. And that's our principal industry anyway. One good example is the extension of the water line for CSA 11 to the high school. That's a $20 million project. And I've been battling with the county about allowing access of that line that goes right by about 10 residences on its way to the high school, and saying, let's let them tap into this water. Okay, it'll give us more of a ratepayer base. So we'll have more funds because they're trying to raise the rates through the roof, which is stupid. It's just bad efficiencies is the reason they're trying to raise the rates. And I've proven that to them, which they don't like. And you can't do that. It's a LAFCO process. You can't expand a district without a countywide vote. And we're not going to get a countywide vote. People over the hill don't want to see Pescadero expand. And it's not expanding. It's just giving decent water to decent people that have crap for water now. So I'm quite emotionally involved with this whole process. So that's one of my pet projects, and I'd like to carry it on to fruition if at all possible. But thank you all very much for showing up. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Next is Nick Erich.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting this on. It's really important. And also to the volunteers, Irma, Catherine, Brendan, Rita, really appreciate it. PMAC can't fix all the issues this community has. And, if we just all pull together and collaborate, we can start knocking these issues down together. We can't rely on just the county or one group or another group just to solve these things. We've got to do it together. It's the only way to do it. We need more subcommittees. And I think that's what I'm going to be pushing for if I get on the board, is to pull in the community members that really want to be engaged. I know they're out there. You folks are here. I see my first subcommittee right here. So, I think, as I've worked on different groups within Pescadero, there are a handful of volunteers that are always there. We need to expand that group of volunteers. And I know they're out there. We have to make it easier for them to be able to engage. And we can do that. I think that's one of the roles of PMAC, is to do that. But again, PMAC can't just be courting the three people that show up or the loudest voice or the squeaky wheel. We've got to cover the whole entire community. We need to reach out and talk to the folks that we never see at PMAC or don't feel comfortable coming to a PMAC. We need to change PMAC. We need to maybe take it outside. We need to have more potlucks, whatever it is. I think we'll figure that out as a board. But I think subcommittees are the way to go, and also vote yes on measure 2 so we can really add credibility to the board of PMAC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Itzel Negrete.
Okay. I don't remember who said it, but they said something along the lines to be a leader in our community is really to serve our community. And I'm ready to serve, be that knocking door to door, letting people know like, hey, this is what we're going to go through in PMAC right now. Or this is what we want you guys to learn about, or encouraging civic participation among our youth. That's really what I'm striving for. Maybe because I'm a teacher and I work both at the high school and the elementary school. I also want to see a more accurate representation of our community, and I believe I contribute to that.
Thank you. Next is Patrick Horn.
Thank you. The biggest challenge that the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council faces is a lack of credibility in the community and with partners after a long era of vacancies, appointments, and controversies that broke trust, damaged relationships. This election solves that problem, the rebirth of democracy. The voters can reform their council by voting yes on Measure 2 and voting for the 5 candidates that they believe will be the best team of representatives to advocate for the common good, Pescadero, Loma Mar, and the South Coast to the county, state, federal agencies, and other stakeholders. In the past 50 years, residents attempted to begin a town planning process 3 times. In 2019, 54% of residents said they wanted some change, and 44% said they want lots of change after decades of stifled growth. This is a historic moment of opportunity in our community to protect our open space and rural agricultural character, but also affordable housing solutions, clean water and energy resilience, emergency planning and disaster preparedness, and increased support to our farms, farm labor, local businesses, and workforce. Voting yes on Measure 2 for 5 at-large members will make the Municipal Advisory Council more effective, efficient, and elected by the people. It has been an honor for me to serve this community for the past 18 months. I told you, this is a sacred duty, and I have the heart of a servant. And I ask you to vote for me among your top 5 on November 5th, 5 on November 5th, so that we can move forward in the next term with the good work that we started together. So please vote yes for Measure 2 and vote Patrick Horn for PMAC. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Colin Rose.
I want to thank you all for being here today and for everyone listening in. Thank you for your commitment to our community. Pescadero is more than just a place to live. It's a place we care deeply about. And together, we can ensure it remains a great place for generations to come. Our community faces important challenges, from infrastructure and housing to environmental protection. But I believe that together, we can address these challenges head on. As your representative, I will be a tireless advocate for clean water, affordable housing, and local businesses. I will listen to your concerns, advocate for solutions that reflect our shared values, and work with fellow council members to address the unique needs of our town and get things done. I believe in collaboration and practical, community-driven solutions that reflect our shared values, and I'm ready to bring that mindset to the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council. If elected, I will work every day to ensure that Pescadero remains a wonderful place to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to serving you on the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council.
Thank you. And finally, Mark Wallace.
Thanks. I just want to start by saying thanks to the league and thanks to Irma and to Rita and the people who made this possible. And thanks to everyone for listening to us for the past couple of hours. I do want to reiterate, please vote yes on Measure 2 to reduce the number of seats to 5. And, part of the reason that measure is on the ballot is so that you, the voters, can make that decision. The PMAC's not making that decision. The county is not making that decision. The voters get to make that decision. So please vote yes if you feel that way. No matter who you vote for, I would just ask you to keep 3 things in mind when you're thinking about the candidates. One is to choose a set of candidates who are going to listen in a focused and inclusive way, who are going to hear all of the voices that are out there, and that includes working to bring those voices in. Choose a set of candidates who are going to speak effectively at the county level, who are going to represent your voices to the people who control the resources that we need here. And to choose a set of candidates that you feel are going to work for all of the people of the town, the young and the old, the rich and the poor, people who have been here for generations, or people who may be new to the town or even new to the country. And regardless of whether your slate of candidates gets elected, please come to the meetings and find out more about what's going on and how you can get involved and join a subcommittee. And as has been said, please, say hello to us on the street. Not just because we may be your representatives, but because that's really the very best way to keep the community tight and to keep people working for each other and supporting each other into the future. So again, my name's Mark Wallace, and hopefully I'll see you at a PMAC meeting soon. Thank you.
Thank you. You can find additional information about the candidates on the League's Vote 411 website, vote411.org. We've got some bookmarks in the back you could grab. All the candidates have been invited to enter their information and link to their own websites. The League works diligently to obtain candidate responses so that you can hear from them in their own words, like you have tonight. Please have patience and check back if information is missing. Remember to vote by November 5th. Honored by November 5th, and encourage others to vote as well. Ballots were mailed this weekend, so you should be, if you haven't gotten them, you should be getting them soon in your mailbox. October 21st is the last day to register to vote and get a non-provisional ballot. Note, though, you can register to vote up to and including the day of the election. You will just have to submit a provisional ballot. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization, and membership is open to people all people's ages 16 years and up. If you are interested in helping your community with forums such as this or other activities that encourage civic education and involvement, we've got some brochures at the table in the back. We also have some printouts of the League's pros and cons. Someone mentioned ballot measures, and this is the League's presenting nonpartisan information about the ballot information. So we've got some printouts of those. In the back, you also can find them online on our website, LWVNCSMC, North and Central San Mateo County.org. So, take advantage of all the great information that we have. And now, in conclusion, it's a hard and brave job to get out there and run for office. So please join me in thanking the candidates for coming this afternoon and running for the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council. A lot to keep.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's fun. I love Canada Forum. It's like eight is a long time.
Let's go.